So I needed a way of mounting my camera in the shop so that I could move it around without having a tripod. I've seen all the other channels with people dealing with tripods in their shops, and it's just a nightmare to walk around and to maneuver. So I decided to do a articulated arm camera mounting system that I'll have onto a mono tripod that's weighted at the base. So I start out with a SketchUp drawing of the actual articulated arm. I then print out templates from the SketchUp drawing to use to trace out on my sheet metal. The sheet metal is left over from another project, so I figured I'd make use of it. I've actually already drawn the templates onto the metal here, and I'm going to take up the templates and make sure I've got all the locations that I need to drill through punched. I think I ended up missing a few here and have to go back in and repunch them, and then I use a black marker to highlight them so they're easier to see when I'm over on the drill press. Okay, so everything's been marked, and we're ready to take it over and cut these patterns out. So let's do some plasma cutting. I also took the like sides and clamped them together and did a final grind around the outside edges. Wanted to make sure that they were exact copies of each other. That way when I get ready to drill my holes, which I will also drill them through both pieces at the same time, everything will line up nicely. Now I'm going to grind down the top and bottom mounting bracket. I'm going to sort of round out the edges so they're not so sharp, and getting it ready to weld together these to the main mounting bracket plate. That's the plate right there. Alright, so here's all the individual pieces. First piece is the back plate assembly, then the camera mounting assembly, and then the joining plate for the two sets of arms. I'm using 2.5 inch 5/16 inch bolts with locking nuts. I have the camera mounting plate here, one for the top, one for the bottom. Then these are the wall mount plate ends with the wall mount, and then I have the two sets of arms that are already cut to length with the holes drilled in them. And now we're ready to do some test assembling. Alright, so we're going to start with the wall plate assembly. One set of the arms. We're going to put bolts in temporarily. We're going to attach the joining assembly. I'm now going to test fit the upper and lower mounting brackets. These will be placed so that they're center of this assembly. So I'm using some spacers underneath to get them to the height that will let me weld them into the right location. And then once everything looks good, I'm going to tack them with the TIG and continue on. Okay, now I'm going to take and mount the two tabs that will be attached to the wall mounting bracket itself. I'm going to space this out so I've got a little bit of overhang on one end just to give it a little more support, since it'll be quite heavy once I get everything assembled and camera on the end. Okay, that bracket's all welded up, and I'm going to attach it to the plates on the wall mounting part of the articulated arm. I'll use just some bolts, nuts to temporarily hold it there, and I'm going to assemble the upper two arms that'll attach to the camera mounting bracket. Here I'm going to just make sure everything is movable and nothing binding. And actually I found that one of my arms was touching slightly on the bracket, so I did a quick cut on that just to get that to have a little more clearance and reassemble, and that seemed to have taken care of the problem. So I'm going to cut a couple of small plates I'm going to weld onto the camera mounting assembly. That'll give me a spot to drill and to put the swivel bracket I'm going to use for the actual camera to mount to. I put a small plate on the front just to close that off and to give it more rigidity, and then the plate that's actually where the hole will be for the camera mounting assembly was a little bit longer. I made it almost to the back, touching the arms when they were straight up and down. Doing a little cleanup job here. So here I'm going to do a quick test fit and sizing of my Joby mounting swivel for my camera. This was actually a last minute decision to use this. Actually ended up being just the perfect swivel to put on here. The only thing I ran into was the mounting plate was just a little bit narrower than the base of the Joby swivel, but nothing to really harm anything. So off camera I took it over, drilled it out, got the hole ready to go, and now I'm going to assemble my spring assemblies for the articulated arm. So I temporarily mounted the arm assembly into my vise. I had holes I've drilled into the lower set of arms for the spring, and then I have another set of holes I drilled for the upper arm and the spring. And now I'm going to check this to see if I have the right amount of tension. I'll use the lock nuts to tighten down on the mounting brackets slightly against the arms to get a little more tension, so that when it's pulled to a certain location, it stays in that location. Of course, at this point I have not mounted the camera, and the weight of whatever camera you use will also determine how much tension you need on the bracket. Next up is to build the monopod. So I went to a local scrapyard and found a piece of this 3-inch steel pipe and a piece of 2.5-inch galvanized pipe. I'm going to just have this larger piece slide over the top of the galvanized pipe, and the fit's pretty close, and I think it'll work out just fine. So I'm going to leave the galvanized piece of pipe the length that it was when I bought it. I figure the taller the better, gives me more reach at the top. Only thing I have to do is trim off about a couple inches at the very end where they had cut it out of something else that it had been used in. I also lucked out, one end of this was threaded and had a coupling already left on it, so I'm going to make use of that, as you'll see shortly. Alright, so we're going to take this to the bandsaw, and we're going to cut down the outer sleeve, which the articulate arm will be mounted to, and here I'm trimming up the end of the galvanized just to clean it up. Then I'm going to go over and take that coupling that was on the end of this pipe, and I'm going to weld it onto a piece of just square 1/4-inch steel. This is going to become the base for me to screw in the bottom of the cart I'm going to build. Here I'm just welding on a bunch of scrap I had left over. I just want to give it something to for the concrete to hold on to when I pour it into that base. Cleaning up the sleeve here. This is the completed sleeve assembly with the swivel bracket assembly from the articulating arm. You can see that there's also a huge pin assembly that I created out of a 3/4-inch piece of steel and a steel pin that goes through. I realized I also needed a bracket to hold the monitor that I attached to the camera so that I can see what's being filmed when it's real high up on the articulating arm. This is a piece of leftover 3-inch steel pipe with a piece of 1-inch strap. Just cut the strap to length to get the monitor to clear the back edge of the pipe, and do a little welding, a little grinding. I'll paint it, and we'll put it onto the monopod. With the monitor bracket mounted now, I've got the battery strapped to the bottom of this bracket, the monitor now on top attached to a camera type swivel mount, and I have just about unlimited directions of pointing this monitor, so I can see it just about anywhere I'm standing. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll come back and check out future videos.